It's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and where else would I be but here with you? DJ Stutz here with Little Hearts Academy USA and Imperfect Heroes podcast. And today I am talking about, those picky eaters. And sometimes we have the other end of the problem where we have kids that just don't seem to stop eating, right? And so then there's worries on both sides. Well, Jessica Setnick, who is my guest this week, is amazing. She has a great personality and a great outlook on getting our kids the nutrition that they need. So Jessica has, 25 years of experience as a nutritionist, and she specializes in eating disorders in children. So she's perfect to answer all the questions that you have. And so we talked a lot about her own experience, that she did not have DNA kids of her own, but she married a wonderful guy with 2 children, and they would get them, on their visitation times. And these 2 kids had 5 things that they would eat, and that was it. And so she had to come to terms with that, and it was a little bit, offensive to her. Like, here I am, the specialist, and I have all this experience, and here's my reality. And it's true that sometimes our reality doesn't quite fit what everyone else is telling us that needs to happen. And that could be nutrition, it could be in education, it could be in social emotional growth, it could be in temper tantrums, it could be in getting along with siblings and being disrespectful at home. And you can try a lot of things, and it's important to learn and continue learning, coming up with new ideas that can help you. And that's my podcast can help with that. And there honestly are some others that are really great too. And so I think that you would do well to, if you're having some of these problems, is to listen to my podcast, of course, but then also, look around, see what information is out there. There's a ton of information on basically everything that's out there, and realize that some of it might work for you and some of it may not. And you may actually have a struggle finding what is the right thing for your family. And so it may take a lot of research. Others, the answer may come quite easily. But another thing to consider is the way that your personality interacts with your child's personality. And that's why, even within a family, you've got kids with very different personalities. Some are very quiet, maybe even timid, while another child in the same family can be very outgoing. Well, it's the same thing with food. So you may have a child that is a fantastic eater and does great, and you may have another child that doesn't eat at all, or is very picky, very selective, and others that just can't ever stop eating, right? And so where do you stand in all of this? And I loved that Jessica has a focus. Hi, Caroline. Jessica has a focus on the relationship and what the relationship is between you and the child. And so as we were talking, she told, the story about her first interaction with who would become her new stepkids. And she almost broke up with her then boyfriend, who later became her husband. But he had the kids over for the weekend, and Caroline, you're so sweet. He had the kids over for the weekend, and he made something for dinner, and she said it really looked disgusting. It didn't look good at all. And the kids are like, I don't want to eat it, right? And he was like, you're going to eat this, or you're going to bed. And the kids started crying, and she was like, no. And I think about about this. It's her first, meeting the kids, and she's dating this guy. And she said, no, the kids, you're going to go into the other room. No one's going to bed hungry. I'm going to talk with Daddy for a while. I thought, wow, what a strong woman, right? You totally have to listen to the podcast and get with her. She tells the story so much better than I do, but basically she said, okay, what you say here is probably going to determine our relationship, whether we move forward or not. And she said that, the kids, if they don't want to eat it, that's fine. And you can love the person and be grateful to the person for making something for you, but that's very different than having to eat something you hate. And so she said, what will you eat? And they liked mac and cheese, but it had to be the shells, what was it? She'll tell you, but it was a specific kind. And then she found out that she couldn't make it. Daddy had to make it because he made it the right way. And so anyway, they obviously moved forward and were able to work through it. But she said that relationship has to be really cared for. And of course, you know me, and you know that I believe that with all my heart. And I do believe that you can stand strong and have those boundaries. They're so important for you to have, but you can make those boundaries without screaming and yelling and saying things that are derogatory to the kids. And when you're really mad, we tend to say things that, aren't the best things to say, and we wish we could take them back. And so we want to be able to stay calm and really look at the situation. One of the things that she came up with was the kids had to come up with a list of things that they would eat. Excuse me. That cough still, I tell you. So anyway, she made sure that one of those 5 things was on the table at every meal. And so at least they were eating something. We talked for a little bit about a niece that I have, and she's, grown up now. She just got married last summer to a great guy, and she is just a positive, happy girl with dreams and a path to get there, and she's done really well. But when she was just a little thing, she really would not eat. She would go for days without eating anything. And this was, I think, after she quit nursing. And so it got to the point where they had to do that nose tube. And so it went up through her nose and down her throat and into her stomach. And that's how she was getting her nutrition. And she was that way for probably a couple of years, as I remember. And like I said, she's grown up to be this lovely person. I think she will always be a slender person. We'll see how things go after babies. But she's, not a huge eater now, but she does eat well. She does eat okay now. And we don't have to worry about her starving to death willingly. Isn't that the oddest thing? But so we talked about some of those very extreme cases with kids. We also talked about the other extremes. So, if you've listened to me, you know that I adopted my youngest daughter. And I told her about how one day when my mom would watch her after school, and then I would come pick her up when I got done with work. And one day I came to pick her up, and my mom was like, Deej, she just ate a dozen eggs. I'm like, what? A dozen eggs? Real? I mean, I thought my mom was exaggerating, right? Nope, she wasn't. She went and cooked. She was 12 when we got her, so she's capable of doing things. She came home from school and cooked up a dozen eggs at my mom's house and ate them all. And so we talked about, because I was very worried about her health, right? And she is a big girl now. And to this day, with the COVID going around, and it seems to be hitting people with more weight on them harder. And so I was very concerned about that. She just did get COVID about a month or so ago. And I think she's still got some lingering things off and on. We don't know if it's from lingering from the COVID, or if she lives in Lubbock, Texas, and there's a lot of dust in the air that she's not used to. And so if that's kicking in, or it may be expanding things. So we had some great conversations about that, and how another thing with people who are overweight or obese will often not get the treatment that they need from a doctor, where a thinner person will get treated. So she gave the example of someone who goes in with, was it high blood pressure? Something like that. And how an obese person or an overweight person will go in, and what will the doctor tell them? What do you think? Lose weight, right? Lose some weight. And where a thin person, they'll start getting, medicines, and there'll be different programs, and they'll get in to where they can actually get treated rather than being told to lose weight. And so she gave the advice of, and I loved this for my daughter, is when you go in to say, oh, so what would a thin person, if I was thin, like once, okay, you want me to lose weight, so I lose weight, I still have blood pressure issues, what would you do then? What would you do for a thin person? And if it's different, then hey, Abigail, if it's different than what they would tell, you as a larger person, then you say, I want that. I want what the thin person would get. And push for that and advocate for yourself. And so we had a great discussion about that. Wow, Christine, hi, how are you? So when you're going and talking about those things with your doctor, advocate for yourself, advocate for your child. And so if you have a child that is larger, is eating more, and so they get a little bigger, and you're going in for some health issues, I would ask my doctor and say, is there a difference in how you would treat them if they are thinner than if they are a larger child? And you need to start advocating for your child. And so that's something to consider. But I loved what she says about, it's, you really can't, it's hard to improve it, and get them to eat things that they don't want, but you can always make it worse. And her idea of making it worse is when and boy, I'm an old fart. So, and I was raised, my mother was raised by lumberjacks. And so it was, you eat what's on the table and you clean your plate, or that's it. And I can remember, having things given to me, that my mom would cook, and I really didn't like them. And it'd be, you better eat it. Did anybody, you can even put on the comments, did anybody have an experience like that? I made it, you're gonna eat it. And so with kids with eating disorders, or their mental state is such that it leads them into different eating habits, you can actually make it worse by insisting that they eat what's in front of them. And then let's think about it too. If you keep insisting that they clean their plate and they're full, then they're starting to learn to eat when they're not hungry. And that might lead into some of those other problems that we were just talking about with weight and all of those things. So she I loved her. She's got this great advice and this common sense approach, and she has a workbook that she has on its food fairy tales, and it talks about coming to terms with your eating and your decisions and what's going on in your mind, and she's offering that to so if you go on and listen to the podcast, and then you go down into the show notes, there are links to how to contact her, how to get her free workbook, and how to move forward and get some more information on that. She also, I thought was great, that she's in Texas, but she is in contact with people, people have professional, groups that they are a part of. I have podcasting groups that I'm a part of. And so she's able to help you find maybe somebody, a nutritionist that has that same kind of thought rather than, sneaking the broccoli into the mac and cheese. And she said, some kids may be fine with that, but if you've got the really picky eater, they're going to discern that broccoli is in the mac and cheese. They'll pick up on it, and then now the trust issue is there, right? You're trying to sneak stuff in, and so kids will lose trust in what you're giving them. And so I think she gave the example, some nutritionists will say, oh, you can cauliflower and grind it up really finely and then put it in brownies. And she said, again, most kids would not notice the change in the brownie. But if you've got a child with an eating disorder, an eating issue, they will pick up on it, and then that trust issue is gone. Such great common sense advice. So I loved it. And I loved just the way that she talks so much about the relationship, your relationship with your child. And again, that doesn't mean that you let them walk all over you. It just means that you calmly can state, these are our boundaries. We're not going here, but let's try this over there. And instead of saying, this way or no way. And now think of that with food. This way or no way. You eat what you eat, or you eat what I make, or you're going to go hungry. And a lot of kids will say, okay, fine then. I'll go hungry. And then they're starting to develop that not eating enough, the picky eater syndrome, right? And so she just had some great advice there. We also talked a little bit about the psychology that goes into some of that. And so things that you can look for. So she's great. I hope you listen to the podcast. We've got lots of great information in the show notes if you want to find out more information from her or about her and from her. And then next week, I've got just this amazing episode. Her name is Joy Fisher Griffin, and she is an educator, but she was adopted as a young child, as 3 months old, and just her growing up. And she has such great information about the questions that adoptees, little adoptive children, may have, but they'll never ask. And she said that she never wanted to hurt her mom's feelings or whatever. Well, she tells her story, and oh, what a joy this woman is. We've actually been in contact several times now. We just really enjoyed each other's company. And so that's going to drop next Monday. But you'll get to hear about her story. You'll get to hear about the questions that children have. Or if you have a child who has a friend that's been adopted, this helps you maybe understand better what that relationship and the questions that kids may ask that are simple to answer, and some are not as simple to answer. And so how you can talk with your own child if they have a friend or another family member that's adopted. In my family, you know, of course, that my youngest daughter is adopted, but I have a nephew. In fact, I fostered him. I was his foster mom, and then I got to be his auntie. My sister wound up adopting him, and so that was pretty cool. And so we just talk about that. But she talks about the triad of adoption. So there's the adoptive child, right? There's the adoptive parents, and then there's the birth parents. And so that whole triad really comes to play in their story, and she explains that. So that's going to be next Monday. That will go live next Monday on the podcast. So don't miss this, or the one that's currently up. It went up yesterday on nutrition, picky eaters, how to deal with them, and just a great attitude and some great advice with what is going on. So I wanted to let you know that, probably next week, I will be offering just a little 1-hour workshop, and we're in editing right now to get it ready and set. But there's my dog. And but it's on parent-teacher conferences that are coming up. And so, you know, you only usually get 15, 20 minutes. If you're really lucky, you'll get 25. Just depends on how much time your teacher has and how many children they've got to work out. We also talk about how you have to have, you know, if your child is getting services, so it's not just a matter of making an appointment with your child's teacher. They've got to work out the schedules of whomever they're getting services from. And so we talk about that. We talk about the questions that teachers would really like to know. We talk about etiquette. We talk about questions that you should ask your teacher, and realize that, you know, within that 15 or 20 minutes, you're not going to get a ton of information. But, you know, it's not just parent-teacher conferences where we have important conversations with our child's teacher. It's drop off and pick up, right? It may be a text that you send off. And what are the things that teachers really need to know on a day-to-day basis? We go over that as well. So that's going to be coming up next week, and you'll be able to get on to that, and I'll get all that information to you next week. But have it in your mind and have it ready, because I know that parent-teacher conferences are coming up, and so you're going to want that information. And that's not on my podcast website. That's on my business website, which is Little Hearts Academy USA. That's also the website where I have parent coaching. You can get one-on-one coaching. You can get group coaching. I prefer the group coaching personally, but I understand that people sometimes want to start out with some one-on-one to get some feels for them. Last but not least, I know that last week I had a guest who is a teacher, and she has a tutoring company to help with kids who are struggling with school. And again, with that relationship piece, if you're arguing and fighting all the time and it's, you know, causing a problem with your relationship with your child, maybe it's time to consider getting a tutor and getting a third party in there so that it's not hurting the relationship between you and your child. Well, her name's Amy Buckley, and surprise, surprise, she sent me 4 gift cards, 4 $100 gift cards for her company. And so I think that would cover about 2 sessions. So if you wanted to give it a try, see how it goes, just email me, or you can just message me off of Facebook. You can always do that. Just say, hey, I'm interested in one of the gift cards, and it's going to be first come, first serve. So if you're interested in that, just message me or email me. It's djstutz@littleheartsacademyusa.com, and I will get one of those cards to you, $100. So that's pretty cool. So I hope that you are staying warm in the Denver area. It's freezing cold. I think we had a high of 7 today, and it's at my house, it's still snowing a little bit, that little light snow. So I hope everyone is staying warm and staying safe. And until next week, let's find joy in parenting. See you later, guys. Good night.